Trigger warning, this video contains mentions of suicide. I will flag it in the video when these things appear and we'll put a timestamp for you to skip to, but if you feel like you cannot watch this video because of that, then please feel free to click off. For 2 years, I worked in publishing as an editorial assistant and then later an assistant editor on crime and thriller books. At the time, there was a lot of controversy in the publishing industry about the use of AI from certain publishers. I remember a huge scandal around Bloomsbury using AI art in the cover of Sarah J. Maas's novel, and that was everywhere on all the publication news sites, especially because Sarah J. Maas is such a big author. Now that I've left the industry, I've seen a lot more things about the harms that AI can cause to the publishing industry. The publishing world is seeing publishing companies temporarily close because of an influx of AI submissions, and it's seeing startup tech companies claiming to be publishers that plan to publish 80,000 books a year. Part of the reason I left the publishing industry is because I felt like lots of people were burying their heads in the sand when it comes to AI, and I don't think that we should ignore technological developments in any industry, but I completely understand why people in the industry are hesitant to use it. I think the start of the battle between publishing and AI came with the news of Books 3. If you've never heard of Books 3 before, it is a dataset that is used to train generative AI models by Meta, Bloomberg, and others. It's based on a collection of pirated ebooks and comes close to 200,000 different books, most of which were published in the last 20 years and are therefore still very much in copyright. All of these books have been used for the training of AI models without the permission of authors, estates, or publishers. This was a huge concern for authors, agents, publishers, basically anyone involved in the industry, because the entire industry runs on copyright law existing and protecting the works produced by authors and making sure they get appropriately paid for it. And if you've worked in publishing, you know that authors get paid very, very little except for the few very big authors, and that number falls to zero when books are pirated. Plus, authors aren't consenting to their work being used in this way, which has led to multiple authors suing Meta for copyright infringement. This was all initially revealed through an investigation done by Alex Resner for The Atlantic, and I will link all of those articles down below because I think they do an excellent job explaining what exactly Books 3 is and why it's such a problem for the publishing industry and copyright law as a whole. Now moving on to a dataset I had never heard of until I started making this video called Books 2, which makes sense given the existence of Books 3. OpenAI has been sued by a variety of authors for training ChatGPT on a similar dataset called Books 2. Mona Awad and Paul Tremblay filed a class action lawsuit against OpenAI in 2023. They claimed that OpenAI unfairly profits from stolen writing and ideas, and that the company behaves as if copyright laws apply to everyone except for them. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think kind of all of these big tech generative AI companies act as if copyright law applies to everyone except for them. US and Canadian news publishers, including the New York Times, and a group of best-selling writers, including John Grisham, have also filed lawsuits against OpenAI, alleging that it has illegally used news articles for its training without the permission of the authors who have written them. One of the biggest critics of OpenAI's violation of copyright law was Suchir Balaji. In October, the New York Times published an interview with Mr. Balaji, who, after working for the company for 4 years, had left OpenAI due to its use of copyrighted data to train ChatGPT. He claimed that this was a violation of the law and that things like ChatGPT were ruining the internet. He also has a full blog post that I will link down below that outlines all of the ways that ChatGPT violates US copyright law. Sadly, the body of Mr. Balaji was found on the 26th of November 2024 after the police were called to check on his well-being. The San Francisco Medical Examiner's Office deemed his death to be a suicide. 8 days before he was found, his name appeared in a lawsuit against OpenAI filed by the New York Times. The Times attorney asked a judge to include Mr. Balaji as a custodian in the lawsuit, according to court documents viewed by Business Insider. The attorney's letter described Mr. Balaji as someone with unique and relevant documents. These documents could help support the copyright infringement case that the New York Times was bringing against OpenAI and Microsoft. Many of the articles that I've read are conflating his tragic passing with his criticisms of OpenAI. However, I'm reluctant to say in this video that that's definitely the case without further evidence. There has also been a lot of speculation online about foul play being involved in his death, And since I originally scripted this video, Mr. Balaji's mother has come out and asked for the FBI to investigate his death further, saying that there was foul play involved and that it shouldn't have been ruled a suicide. Similarly, I want to avoid joining in those speculations until further evidence is found. His death comes as a tragic loss for his friends and family, as well as for the responsible AI community. I've obviously mentioned some of the lawsuits that authors and publications have brought against various tech companies due to their violations of copyright law. But I also wanted to talk about the article that was recently written by Kate Moss for the Financial Times that was published in December 2024. Kate Moss CBE is a best-selling author, co-founder of the Women's Prize, and has been named in the top 100 most influential people in publishing by The Bookseller and top 100 most influential people in the arts by The Evening Standard. I'll link her article down below, but I also wanted to summarize it in this video because it is behind a paywall. Moss's #1 best-selling book, Labyrinth, which purportedly took her 15 years to write, has been scraped and used in Meta's generative AI model. This has been done without her consent, without compensation, and without notification. In the article, she outlines the current big government discussions surrounding AI and UK copyright law. First is the report A Brave New World that was launched by the Authors Licensing and Collecting Society, which is an organization in the UK that ensures writers are fairly compensated for their works that are copied, broadcasted, or recorded. The report summarizes the findings of over 13,000 authors and their attitudes towards AI. The report found that authors are not entirely opposed to their work being used to train AI models, but only if they received fair compensation, were appropriately credited, or permission was asked of them. This basically shut down a lot of the big tech narratives that creatives are against technological change. Next was the revelation of the government's consultation to boost trust between sectors. This government consultation was supposed to ensure that AI developers provide better clarity on how material is being used. However, once the framework was revealed, it seemed that the UK government was attempting to weaken copyright law. It suggests that authors should have to opt out of their work being used in AI training rather than being able to opt in. Something that Moss mentioned that I thought was really interesting in the article was that these big tech companies do rely on creators to train their models. Despite what the name suggests, generative AI cannot create new stories that don't already exist. If the UK government was to weaken the strong copyright laws that allow authors to earn a living, big tech companies won't have new data to train their models on, which is essential for future growth. Robust copyright laws are the main reason why the UK has such a booming and thriving publishing industry. I attended a talk a while ago by Richard Charkin when I still worked in the publishing industry, who is a British publishing executive and has worked in the publishing industry since the 1970s. In this talk, he discussed at length the publishing industry's reliance on copyright law. It rewards authors for their creative efforts, provides an economic incentive for authors and publishers, and provides legal protection in the case of infringement. Charkin said that his biggest concern when it came to AI in the publishing industry was very similar to that of Kate Moss. The most pressing issue when it comes to AI in publishing is how it will affect copyright laws, because those laws are the backbone of the entire publishing industry. In my non-professional, non-engineering opinion, a degradation of copyright laws may lead to AI models, particularly those focused on storytelling, to train on other AI-generated content, such as AI-generated books that I'm going to be talking about later in this video. I think that this has the strong potential of leading to model collapse of a lot of large language models. Model collapse is when machine learning models gradually degrade due to errors coming from uncurated training on the outputs of another model, including prior versions of itself. So it's also in the best interest of these big tech companies to have authors continue to write high-quality material, which they can't or won't be incentivized to do without the protection of copyright law. Interestingly, there are some companies that are beginning to ask authors for their permission to use their works in the training of AI models. For example, HarperCollins US is asking some of its nonfiction authors for permission to license their books to Microsoft to train its large language models. Perhaps a possible solution to this issue is for big tech companies and publishers to collaborate together to ensure high-quality material is being used in training data, but also that the writers of this material are being appropriately compensated and notified. As I alluded to earlier, aside from the copyright infringement of existing texts, there has also been a huge increase in AI-generated books. On the internet a few years ago, there was a huge boom of people self-publishing on Amazon with a lot of influencers talking about how Kindle Direct Publishing was a get-rich-quick scheme. KDP basically meant that anyone could be an author and get paid for it without going down the traditional publishing route. Now, this scheme is made even easier with hundreds of AI-written books flooding Amazon. There is also no legal requirement to disclose if a book is written by AI, according to Amazon. Now, not only are influencers talking about how to do this, but even well-respected companies like Udemy have courses such as Self-Publish an Amazon KDP bestseller book in 24 hours, or write and publish a book in a day using ChatGPT. Social media is now flooded with influencers using ChatGPT or other generative AI platforms to write a book, and there are even ChatGPT written books now on Amazon about how to write a book using ChatGPT, which isn't at all confusing. Even worse, there are reviews on these AI-generated books about how to write AI-generated books, and these reviews are, you guessed it, AI generated. This could be a whole separate topic talking about the dead internet and the theory that everything on the internet now is basically AI responding to other AI-related content, but that's for a different video. Back in February 2023, one of the most prestigious publishers of science fiction short stories, Clarkesworld, had to close its submissions due to the sheer amount of AI-generated pitches flooding its inboxes and overwhelming the editorial team. Before ChatGPT came into the mainstream, the publisher would receive around 10 submissions a month that seemed to plagiarize other work, according to the founder, Neil Clark. Now that number has skyrocketed into the hundreds. This has led to the business no longer being sustainable in the way that it was, with Clark claiming that this has led to an increase in barriers for new authors. Clarkesworld ended up closing its submissions for a month, and Neil Clark has suggested that this might have to happen again in the future due to an increase in AI submissions. It will be interesting to see how agents and other publishers filter their submissions in the future, or if they will just be overwhelmed by AI-written pitches. Other than the Kate Moss article, the biggest news that I've seen in 2024 for publishing and AI has been surrounding the publisher Spines. This story was the main reason why I wanted to make this video talking about AI and publishing in particular. I say publisher in quotation marks because, in my opinion, Spines is a tech firm that is simply exploiting and taking advantage of potential authors. In my opinion, allegedly, they are participating in vanity publishing, and they have a complete disregard for publishing material that has any particular caliber or quality. Spines claims to be a publishing platform, which they say is a completely new concept for the publishing industry. On their website, they compare themselves to both traditional publishing and vanity publishing. They claim that traditional publishing is problematic because, one, there's a very high rate of rejection, and two, authors tend to get royalties somewhere between 2 and 15%. The first claim is true. There is a lot of rejection in the traditional publishing industry, but I think that's sort of on par for any creative industry and something that an author should expect going into it. The second claim made by Spines is just untrue. For those of you that might not know, royalties are the amount of money paid to an author for each sale of their book. Royalties are only paid once authors earn out their advance, i.e. the sales of the book are equal to or more than the amount of money they were paid to write the book in the first place. I honestly can't think of any publisher that would give a royalty rate of 2%. I don't think that that's ever been done in the industry. In fact, I've seen digital-only publishers pay 45% royalties for ebooks, although for print editions, it would probably be somewhere between 7 and 15%. Now, I'm not trying to defend publishing's poor paying of authors. I think it's bad that authors are paid so little. And when I worked in publishing, sometimes I was like, oh my God, I feel bad making this offer to an agent saying that I'm going to pay this author such a small amount of money. But it's just not true that authors are getting 2% royalties. I don't know where they came up with this number. In an interview with the bookseller, the CEO of Spines, Yehuda Niv, also claims that only incredibly famous people get publishing deals, which is so obviously false. I have no idea why he decided to say it, given the sheer number of debut non-famous authors that are published every year. If you're an author and you don't want to deal with rejection and you don't want to lose out that much money on sales, it is so easy to self-publish nowadays. As I said earlier, people have been self-publishing on Amazon since Kindle Direct Publishing started. The AI-generated books that I mentioned are being published straight onto Amazon, and it has always been relatively easy to do this. Amazon even offers print on demand, so if someone orders your book and wants a hard copy of it instead of a digital edition, Amazon will print that book. Spines also compares themselves on their website to vanity publishing, which is where authors pay to get their books published. Spines claims that they're a publishing platform, which is different from vanity publishing, but to get your work published by Spines and not even have like a real editor on it, just have AI on it, and you have to pay for the privilege of doing that. I don't understand how that's anything other than vanity publishing, and I think that they have just decided that they can change what words mean to suit their narrative. So authors have all of the drawbacks of being self-published while also paying for the privilege to do so. Spines claims that it can turn around books in 30 days using AI to proofread, distribute, and market all of these books. If you're an author and you really want to do this, like use AI to proofread, use AI to create marketing material, or to distribute your books, you can just do that yourself. I think it's really morally problematic for all of the reasons I've outlined, and I think that it will lead to worse generative AI in the future. But if you really want to do that, why would you pay someone else to do it for you? You can just do it yourself. In the same interview with the bookseller that I mentioned earlier, Niv claims that Spines already has 7 best-selling books. However, he refused to share the sales numbers for those books, and of those that the bookseller could find on Amazon, they all had less than 100 ratings. Not reviews, ratings where you just click the stars on Amazon. So I think it's highly unlikely that any of these are best-selling books. Basically, my point is, if I wanted a book published, I wouldn't trust Spines to do it. I don't know who told these tech bros that trying to do this would be a remotely good idea, but it's clear to me that, in my opinion, Spines doesn't care about books, doesn't care about authors, and certainly doesn't know anything about publishing. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I think it's very important for the publishing industry to embrace the developments of AI if it wants to keep up with the ever-technologically changing world. This could be in the form of asking authors and appropriately compensating them for their work to be used in the training of large language models. This could be done with publishers utilizing AI to help with project management or to help editors be inspired for their cover briefings. What I don't think AI should be used for is to weaken copyright law or to generate poor quality books and stop people having access to good quality literature. If you'd like to learn more about AI ethics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you're notified every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching.